Alright, so picture this. The year is 1776. A bunch of guys in powdered wigs are huddled in a room, sweating their powdered wigs off because it's hotter than a firecracker in Philly in July. These men, despite the heat, are determined, focused, and driven by a shared vision. And you know what they're doing? They're signing a piece of paper. But not just any piece of paper. This is the Declaration of Independence, a document that would change the course of history. See, before all that, America was just a bunch of colonies like little baby countries, ruled by England, the big cheese across the pond. These colonies were scattered along the eastern seaboard, each with its own unique character and challenges. But these colonists, they were a different breed. They were resilient, resourceful, and fiercely independent. They came here looking for freedom, opportunity, a chance to make something of themselves. They sought a new life, away from the constraints and limitations of the old world. Life wasn't easy. They had to tame the wilderness, deal with grumpy Native Americans, and follow a king who was about as useful as a chocolate teapot. Every day was a struggle for survival, but they persevered. Taxes, laws, you name it, King George III was breathing down their necks. The British Crown imposed heavy taxes and restrictive laws, making life even harder for the colonists. Something had to give, and give it did. The tension reached a boiling point, and the spark of revolution was ignited, leading to a fight for independence that would shape the future of a nation. Now, these colonists, they weren't quitters. They were scrappy, resourceful, and had a taste of freedom they weren't about to give up. So, they did what any self-respecting group of future Americans would do. They started a revolution. The shot heard round the world echoed through the Massachusetts countryside, and the American Revolution was off and running. Farmers became soldiers, shopkeepers became spies, and everyone, from Paul Revere to Molly Pitcher, played their part. Leading the charge was a no-nonsense Virginia planter named George Washington. He wasn't a military genius, but he was a born leader, tough as nails, and determined to give King George a royal beatdown. After 8 long years of fighting, the Americans, with a little help from their French friends, pulled off the impossible. They defeated the mighty British Empire. Now they had to figure out what kind of country they wanted to be. They hammered out a pretty amazing document called the Constitution. It was all about we the people, and creating a government where nobody, not even the president, was above the law. They established a system of checks and balances, to make sure no one got too big for their britches. And they guaranteed certain basic rights like freedom of speech, religion, and the right to bear arms, which has been a whole other kettle of fish, but that's a story for another time. The Founding Fathers knew they were creating something special, a grand experiment in self-government. Could a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal actually survive? The early years were a bit messy, to say the least. They argued about everything, from taxes to tariffs, and almost came to blows over slavery, but somehow they muddled through. They expanded westward, pushing the frontier further and further, sometimes at the expense of Native Americans, which wasn't exactly their finest hour. But they also built canals, roads, and railroads, connecting the country and fueling an economic boom. Section 5. Westward Expansion. Manifest Destiny and its Consequences. Now, this whole westward expansion thing, it was fueled by this idea called Manifest Destiny. Basically, Americans believed it was their God-given right to spread their brand of democracy and claim all the land they could get their hands on, from sea to shining sea. They packed up their wagons, loaded their rifles, and headed west, encountering Native American tribes who weren't exactly thrilled about sharing their ancestral lands. Conflicts arose, battles were fought, and treaties were broken. It was a complicated and often tragic chapter in American history, one that still resonates today as we grapple with the legacy of westward expansion and its impact on Native American communities. Section 6. A Nation Divided. The Civil War and its Aftermath. By the mid-1800s, America's biggest sin, slavery, had ripped the nation in two. The South, clinging to its agricultural economy and the forced labor that sustained it, clashed with the North, which was rapidly industrializing and embracing abolition. The election of Abraham Lincoln, a lanky lawyer from Illinois who opposed the expansion of slavery, was the final straw. The South seceded, forming the Confederate States of America, and brother fought brother in the bloodiest conflict in American history. The Civil War was a brutal 4-year struggle that tested the very soul of America. In the end, the Union prevailed, slavery was abolished, and the nation began the long and painful process of Reconstruction. Section 7. The Industrial Age, Innovation and its Discontents. With the Civil War over, America entered a period of unprecedented industrial growth. Factories sprang up like mushrooms after a spring rain, cities swelled with immigrants seeking a better life, and fortunes were made and lost overnight. The Industrial Revolution brought about incredible technological advancements, from the telephone to the light bulb, but it also created a widening gap between the rich and the poor and fueled labor unrest and social upheaval. Workers, often toiling in dangerous conditions for meager wages, began to organize, forming unions and demanding better treatment. It was a time of great change, but also great inequality and social unrest. Section 8. America on the world stage. From world wars to global power. For much of its early history, America had played a relatively isolationist role in world affairs, but the 20th century brought new challenges and responsibilities, forcing the nation to step onto the global stage. 2 world wars, separated by a generation, drew America into the conflicts raging in Europe and Asia. The first, a brutal clash of empires, saw the rise of American military might. The second, a fight against fascism and tyranny, solidified America's position as a global superpower. The aftermath of World War II brought new challenges. The Cold War, a decades-long ideological struggle with the Soviet Union and the threat of nuclear annihilation. Section 9. The Fight for Equality, the Civil Rights Movement and beyond. This pivotal era in American history marked a turning point in the fight for civil rights and social justice. While America had made great strides in its development as a nation, achieving remarkable milestones in various fields, one glaring injustice remained: racial segregation and discrimination. This systemic inequality affected millions of African Americans. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s sought to right this wrong. It was a time of great upheaval and transformation. Inspired by the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, who championed nonviolent resistance, civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and John Lewis emerged as prominent figures in the movement. They advocated for nonviolent resistance and peaceful protest, believing that love and peaceful actions could overcome hate and violence. From the Montgomery bus boycott, which was a pivotal moment in the movement, to the March on Washington, where Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech, their courage and determination galvanized the nation. These leaders inspired countless others to join the cause. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which aimed to eliminate barriers to voting for African Americans, were landmark achievements, but the struggle for equality and justice continues today. Despite these significant victories, as we grapple with issues of systemic racism and inequality, the fight for true equality remains an ongoing challenge. The legacy of the civil rights movement lives on as we strive for a more just and equitable society. Section 10. The Modern Era, Challenges and Triumphs. The latter half of the 20th century and the early 21st century have seen America grapple with a wide range of challenges and triumphs. These decades were marked by significant events that shaped the nation's identity and its role on the global stage. The Vietnam War, the Watergate scandal, and the assassination of a president tested the nation's resolve. These events brought about a period of introspection and change, forcing America to confront its values and principles. But there were also moments of great achievement, moments that showcased the resilience and innovation of the American spirit. The fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Cold War, and the remarkable advancements in technology, medicine, and communication. These advancements not only improved the quality of life, but also connected the world in unprecedented ways. The terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, marked a turning point in American history, a day that will forever be etched in the collective memory of the nation, ushering in an era of heightened security concerns and global terrorism. The impact of this event was felt worldwide, leading to significant changes in international relations and domestic policies. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the Great Recession, and the rise of political polarization have left their mark on the nation's psyche. These challenges have tested the unity and resilience of the American people, shaping the nation's path forward. Section 11. The American Story, a Legacy of Freedom and Progress. So there you have it, a whirlwind tour of American history. It's a story of triumph and tragedy, of progress and setbacks, of hope and resilience. It's a story that's still being written, a story that each and every one of us has a role in shaping. From the early colonists who dared to dream of a better life to the activists and reformers who fought for equality and justice, America has always been a nation striving to live up to its ideals. It's a work in progress, sure, but it's a story worth telling, a story worth remembering, and a story worth fighting for.